This is the Sportszilla Show with Rain and Matt and WKTV Sports Director Spencer Davidson on ESPN Radio.
So as I don't talk a little bit too much because the man on the phone's in the Accelerate Sports Complex phone line, our guest of honor today, very happy to have some time from, as I like to call him, the Heim. Coach Jim Boeheim is with us. My opening question to you, Jim, is who is happier right now? Based on your reaction when Boeheim's Army won TBT, could it be you? Could it be Julie? Is it Eric? Is it the boys? Is it the entirety of nationwide Orange Nation? This fan base is incredible, Jim.
I think it's the whole nation, absolutely, and I think we all obviously would have to rate that to Adam Weissman for really facilitating this, bringing this team together. Obviously it always costs money to feed, house, bring guys in. All that costs a lot of money. And Adam wanted to see a good team, and they did an incredible job. It's ironic because they really could have lost the first game. They were in real trouble in the first game. That team was a sleeper kind of team, and they really had them. And, which the other time, same thing happened. So in the finals, I mean, they had an open 10-foot jump shot that the guy is a great shooter and missed, to make the three-point shot possible at the end. So it was a accomplished in a tournament that you can be really, really good and be out in a game or two. It's really hard to win for that tournament, especially with the Elam ending. You can be better, but you still got to keep going and score points in the extra time. So it's a tremendous accomplishment. Those guys were just great. They just played hard, and anybody that doesn't like that, I've heard of a couple of people that said they weren't even going to watch it. They're not basketball fans, or they're snooty, they're elitist or something, because it was good. It was good basketball, and it was intense and really well played. I mean, they really went after it, and you have to admire that. I mean, as a sports fan, maybe you're just not a sports fan if you don't admire that or like that. I think that's really what it is. You're not a real sports fan if you don't like watching that. It was great. I was really proud to be there. I'm proud of the group, the job that they did, and the other team. I mean, the other team played great. I mean, it's heartbreaking when you lose that game. Professional sports, you play in the NBA Finals, both teams are getting paid.
Yeah.
Both teams are getting paid. In this one, no one gets paid except the winning team. It's like a big golf tournament. You get to the last group in the U.S. Open, and you lose. You're getting $500,000 or $600,000, $700,000 or $800,000. You get nothing in this one. It's really tough. I wish they would expand it a little bit and pay the two finalists something. Pay this loser something. I think even $200,000 to be split up would be good. It's kind of heartbreaking when you do all that and you get there and there's one shot, one play is all it takes, and you get nothing. It's really hard for that team.
This is Jim Boeheim with us here on the Sportszilla Show with ESPN Radio. I hate to bring up a bad memory with all the successes that you've had in your career, Jim, but that final shot in the Elam ending, it reminded me of Keith Smart when he actually made that in '87 against Indiana, and I'm like, no, not again. Point being, where does this rank for you? I mean, you've got the national championship, the gold medals, and Team USA and all that. It's up there, right?
I keep everything in a separate category. Everything's separate. Basketball games, golf tournaments won or lost, or, family situations. They're all separate. They're all great. Seeing my kids do something is great. Seeing, I remember making a putt in a golf tournament to win. It was great. Those are great highlights, and they're in separate places, and they're all great. The game the other night was great. I've been fortunate to have a lot of good memories in a lot of different places. So I don't really say this is better. They're all different. They're all different memories and different things.
Jim, we saw you obviously giving the big hug to Devendorf after the game, and just how special was that moment? He's been in this tournament for many years. You've seen him grow as a player and a person over the past decade plus. So what did that mean to you when he came over and embraced Buddy and Jimmy, embraced you and Julie? What was that moment like?
Well, it reminds me of what was here, and there were several critics that said, he wasn't a good kid, he shouldn't be here, and, wasn't the kind of student athlete you want to have. And he admittedly, obviously, did have difficulties, but he persevered. He worked through them, and now he's probably as valuable a member of our community as anybody. I mean, he raises money for kids, for charities, shoes, coats, all kinds of things, and just it's been great in terms of his development. And it's a great lesson for people to understand. You can have your difficulties, but you can overcome them. You can be really have a great impact on people. And Eric has done that, and I'm as proud of him as any player that I've ever coached.
Yeah.
Because it's been a journey, and he's a great father. He's a great member of our community, and it was just great to see him have success in this tournament. And he made a couple of huge shots in the game.
Yep, yes, he did.
Which was difficult. Andrew White made a couple of huge shots in the first half that kept us in the game. I mean, C.J. Fair made some plays early. I mean, it was really a great team effort. And, I saw some people say, well, it's other players. Yeah, I mean, we're happy to have other players contribute. But what was it? 6 of the players with Syracuse played at Syracuse. I mean, that's still more than any other team in the tournament probably had, except for a couple, in terms of having a large number of players from one school. So it was a great, great tournament, and it was fun to just watch it. I didn't have any part in it, but it was fun to watch it, and really proud of those guys. And all the fans there were wearing orange, so it was great. Hopefully we can get that in the Dome next year. We need to push for that. I think it'd be a great event to have here in Syracuse, 3 days in the summer. They can still have concerts and do a lot of things in the Dome, but it would be great to have that tournament in Syracuse and hopefully have put together another good team that could get here and play in it. It'd be great for our program. It'd be great for the community.
Jim Boeheim is with us here at the Sports Illustrated Show on ESPN Radio. Matt, go ahead.
So, Coach, we wanted to ask you about Carmelo Anthony going to the Lakers hours before Boeheim's Army tipped off in the championship round. That news got reported. What are your thoughts on him going to the Lakers?
Well, I'm really happy. I was hoping it would happen even a year or two ago, but he had a good run in Portland. I think he kind of, in some people's eyes, not mine, but in some people's eyes, he had to prove that he could come off the bench and be productive, and he did that. He was really productive coming off the bench, and I think he's a perfect fit for the Lakers. I mean, he can come in and score points, and they need shooters. I think they picked up a couple shooters, a couple guys that can score. He's in great shape. I saw him down at Peach Jam. He looks great. He's working out every day. He really looks great. I think it's a great way for him to have a chance to go out. And the NBA's gotten real strong. There's a lot of strong teams right now. But the Lakers, if LeBron and Anthony Davis are healthy, which that's a pretty big question mark. Anthony has not been that healthy. But if they're both healthy, the Lakers, I would say they're definitely favorites to win next year. Even with the Nets and the Bucks. The Nets will be really good too. But I think the Lakers would be, right there. to win it next year. So I'm really happy for him. He's earned it, and it'd be great to see him have a chance to win a championship in the NBA.
What about Alan Griffin getting an invitation to join the Lakers Summer League team and develop his skills?
He's a real talented kid. He really is. He showed that here when he struggled right at the end. He just hit a ball there, but he has some great games. He can get his shot. He's a really great shooter, and those guys fare well in the NBA. Guys that can score and shoot. I think he's got a chance to play in the NBA.
Jim, I wanted to switch to the Knicks. I'm a big Knicks fan. You're talking to a couple of us here. And the move for Kemba Walker, if he is healthy with the addition of Evan Fournier and then what's already in place, they signed Julius Randle to an extension and, of course, coached by Tom Thibodeau. The Knicks are back, and it's great for the NBA. What do you think of those moves? And, make us Knicks fans happy with some good news.
Well, I think the good news is they are good moves. Those are great moves. I think Derrick Rose coming back, he was one of the most productive players in the league last year. So you got him, Fournier, you got Kemba Walker. They got a great coach. Before this free agency, I was predicting, thinking about it, that the Knicks would not be as good next year because they really overachieved this year. I remember watching them play 3 or 4 games, and they just gritted it out and somehow won, and it was like, geez, they should have lost, and they did that a lot last year. And so, to me, they got to get better. And is Randall good enough to consistently be that guy? And the other key is, can R.J. Barrett make shots? That's really, for me, the key for the Knicks going forward. Those two guys, can they really elevate their game to where, Knicks fans think they could be or should be? And the East has gotten tough. The East has really gotten tough with the Nets. Certainly Milwaukee's not going away. Atlanta is pretty good. The East is not easy anymore. The Celtics, I think, will be good. So I think there's hope for the Knicks, but I wouldn't put them in the top 4 or 5 teams yet.
Yeah.
All right, that's fair. I can take that assessment. It's better than the outlook's been the last decade. So I'll take
they're
that.
way better than that. Way better than that.
Absolutely. Brighter days ahead. Of course, speaking with Jim Boeheim, head coach of the Syracuse men's basketball program, and Jim, you're no stranger to what is happening right now. The Olympics, 3-time gold medalist. Now, for the first time in many years, not on the sidelines overseas. So, what is your assessment of Team USA thus far? A lot of people were doubting them coming in, obviously, the exhibitions, but what's your take now?
Well, I said 2 games ago before they played these last 2 games that they were still in the thing to win, and I thought then they could, even though they just lost to France. They've shown now that they're there, that they're the best team. They'll have a tough game against France. I think it'll be difficult in the finals to win. They do rely a little too much on 3-point shooting. The last night against Australia, they start out and miss 8 in a row or something from the 3-point line, and they're down 15. But when they started making them, and they have a lot of guys that can make them, when they started making them, the game was a blowout. And Australia's good. They're a tough team. France is better. In some ways, I'm glad they didn't get Luka Doncic because Luka is capable of going out there and getting 30, 20, and 20 or something in a game. He's just a phenomenal player. He might be the best player in basketball right now. So France is good, and it'll be a tough game. But if we can make a fairly decent percentage from the 3-point line, I think we will win. Kevin Durant is the difference. I mean, he's the difference maker. He's the greatest Olympic player, international player that I've seen because he shoots it from anywhere. And his length, I mean, he was blocking shots last night, making plays. He's just now getting into form. Remember, he missed 2 years practically. So he's still, I don't see him quite where he was, but he's close. And I don't think he'll let them lose. He won the gold medal game in Rio for us when we were struggling. And I don't see him letting this team lose. I think they'll win. I think women will win. So it should be a good Olympics for basketball, American basketball.
Jim, it's Coach K's last year with Duke. Do you have anything special planned? Maybe like you're going to throw your jacket at him the final time he comes to Syracuse? Can you do that for us, please?
I hope I don't have to do that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
We'd like to have a nice night, a good ovation for him when he's here, and we'd like to beat him. So that's what we're going to try to do. But he's got a great team. This is one of his better teams. They've got some veterans that know what they're doing, and they've got some really talented young players. I would put them in the top 3 or 4 teams in the country right now. They're really going to be good this year.
We're creeping up on our season, and I can't wait. We'll talk about that and hopefully get you back on here to break that down. But since you're enjoying a summer vacation and we just celebrated Boeheim's Army winning TBT, I want to leave you with one last quick question. We have Coach Jeremy Pope on a little bit later on today here on the Sports Illustrated Show on ESPN Radio, Jim. And I just want to hear your endorsement of the fantastic job that he did bringing this team to victory.
I think he did a great job. He was smart. He had Ryan Blackwell there and had Ryan make a lot of the substitutions. And I thought that was really good because I thought they did do some really good things, getting players in and out and not playing some guys sometimes. That you have to kind of do. And they found a way to win, and that's not easy to do. When they didn't shoot well in the whole tournament, and but they made shots when they had to. And that's how you win these things. But again, he did a great job. The veteran players really helped. And in those tournaments, when you're not practicing a lot, it's like the Olympics. The players have got to make plays for you. I mean, you're not in a few practices. You're not going to outcoach a lot of people. You've got to get them in position, but the players have got to make plays for you. And Rice, and then in the finals, Kiefer, they made the plays that had to be made. And you have to give those veteran guys a lot of credit. And I thought Tyler Lydon and Chris McCullough were great inside. They really did a lot of great things inside. They were a really, really good 1-2 punch at that center position. We haven't had that. And I thought that was a big difference in the tournament. And then, Rice and Kiefer at the end of the games, they were fabulous.
Jim, if you need any tips, they did run a little 2-3 zone, so call them up if you need a little help this year, okay?
I think we're okay in that category, and we'll make a lot more shots this year than they did. But the rest is the rest of everything we're going to do is up in the air, and looking forward to it. I think we've got some really good, solid veteran players who know what has to be done, and I think we had a good 8 weeks this summer with them. So I think by the time we get going this fall, we'll be in a good position. We got a great schedule, really difficult schedule, and I think fans will enjoy those games. A lot of tough games. So hopefully, I know I'm looking forward to it. I think our fans, I'm looking forward to seeing them back in the dome.
You verify that for you.
I just wish we could get everybody to get their shots so we could get healthy again in this country. I'm just discouraged by what I hear about.
So are we.
Government conspiracy to get a shot.
Yeah.
Or I'm not sure. Yes, if it's gonna. If I'm going to get sick, when 70 million people have gotten the thing. So I mean, how many people do you need to get the shot to be sure? 100, 200 million? I mean, come on, let's get this thing. This is the only way out of this. Let's go, please.
Man,
yes,
there's a few things that you mentioned today that I like. Get your shots and let's get the tournament to Syracuse. That'd be great. Jim, we're grateful to you for the time and, of course, the legacy of Syracuse basketball that you built all these years. Hopefully we can talk again very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much.
Okay.
one and only Jim Boeheim. He coaches Syracuse University. Did you know that?
Who?
Jim Boeheim? Who's that guy? Awesome to talk to Jim to lead things off. Listen, we got more fun on the phones. Mike McAllister will join us today. John Schmelk's going to be joining us today. And head coach Jeremy Pope of Boeheim's Army be joining us today. ESPN Radio, Sports Illustrated Show. Quick break. Be right back. Boy, we got to jump on QSportsTalk.com, don't we?
Does it matter? It's the Sportszilla Show with Rain and Matt with WKTV Sports Director Spencer Davidson on ESPN Radio. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com. Does it matter?
Oh boy, the chat today. It's getting interesting in the chat at QSportsTalk.com. Sorry, I'm trying not to chuckle to myself. It can go a couple of different directions in there, guys. I will say this. I agree. Let's get those shots. You want to know why?
So we can pack the dome again?
That's really where I was going to go with this. There's many ways that you can go with this conversation, but wouldn't it be nice to sit your butt in the dome with thousands of others and watch some Syracuse basketball? Or, hey, as Jim Boeheim suggested to us, there's a facility that would be great to host the basketball tournament, something known as TBT that Boeheim's Army just won, next year.
What place would that be, Rain?
I think it's called the Carrier Dome. They reference it as the stadium once in a while. It has air conditioning now. There's been some renovations. You got that awesome video screen in there now.
Yeah.
That's just a thought. But it's QSportsTalk.com. This is ESPN Radio and the Sportszilla Show. And we are ready to go with, more conversations on TBT. SU football training camp starts tomorrow. Yes, we are aware there was a presser a little earlier with Dino and Kingsley Jonathan and Chris Elmore. We are going to get some thoughts on that with Mike McAllister, break that down a little bit. NFL Hall of Fame game is tonight. We got to discuss that. You got some thoughts on it? It's like, big deal. But at the same time, football's back.
Football is back.
Hell
yeah. I mean, with the two teams playing, though, I feel like I wouldn't be totally upset if there's like a thunderstorm causes the game to be postponed or canceled.
I don't like either team.
Yeah.
They're terrible. John Schmelk talked to us about the New York Giants. ESPN Radio in Central New York is the home and flagship, and you'll hear those games right here. And also he covers the Knicks. So we want to revisit that conversation and the NBA and the draft and free agency in general. Big things happening with the Knicks. They've jumped up a couple notches. They're not quite there yet, I don't think. But they're closer than they were last year, and they made a lot of progress last year.
They got the Jim Boeheim seal of approval for the direction they're going in, so we'll take that, certainly.
Yeah, I think that's a credible endorsement.
Yeah.
Head coach Jeremy Pope of Boeheim's Army at about 3:30 on the Accelerate Sports Complex phone line. We call this Does It Matter? So Matt is going to ask Spencer and I a couple of questions right now.
Does it matter that Jim Boeheim also endorsed the Celtics?
No.
As being a good team?
No.
I didn't hear that.
Oh. I didn't hear that either. I think
I chose to ignore that.
Yeah, I think
it was the one statement that he made that I'm blatantly going to disagree with. I'm sorry, Jim, but I don't think the Celtics are going to be any good this year, mostly because I want them to suck. But that's just me.
That's brutal.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's a double whammy, too, because if they suck, then a Boston team's not doing well, and Matt's miserable.
He's going to be cranky. Instead of salty Jim Boeheim, we'll have salty glue guy. That's funny.
Especially with the Patriots not expected to be well either.
Man, you had a lot of titles in your town of Boston, but I digress. What's your first question, bud?
Does it matter that Jameson Tyone is on a roll, and so is this Yankees offense, especially late in yesterday's game? I was worried they were going to lose to the O's again, but they rallied.
Yeah, and it's the Baltimore Orioles, so let's keep perspective. And they swept the Miami Marlins, teams you're supposed to beat. But they needed a couple of cream puff games like this and Boone addressed it to start to get this offense aligned and clicking. What Anthony Rizzo has been doing is ridiculous. But as far as Jameson Tyone, about a month and a half ago, he had that start where he gave up like 5 runs and got 1 out, got pulled from the game. He hit rock bottom. And he said, I was just reading up on this earlier, that I had to get to a point where I realized I can't be in the process of coming back for my second Tommy John all year. I need results. I've worked too hard to not be good. So he got the pitching coach together. He got the analytics team together. He got Gary Sanchez and Higashioka together. And they sat down and he said, let's tear me down and build me back up. Let's get this right. And the results have been astounding since then. He's the reigning player of the month. He's been, literally, I'm feeling more comfortable with him on the mound right now than Garrett Cole, who's had a few bumps in the road. You almost wonder if the rest for his arm ultimately might be good for him. You don't want him to get COVID. That's not the reason you would want him to maybe skip a start or two. But it might even help Jordan Montgomery as well, who has also been pitching very well. Because if you look at the team with some arms in place, if they're right and they somehow do get into the playoffs, and they're only about 6 games out now, good things can happen for this team if that offense continues this trend.
Absolutely. And in terms of Garrett Cole, if you want to look at silver linings with him not being able to pitch and be in the lineup and be around the team necessarily in a full capacity, he has a chance to potentially take some time to get his mechanics right, his throwing down, kind of just get back into the swing of things so that when he comes back, hopefully he can be stronger and be the Garrett Cole that we had come to be used to seeing. Now, granted, or to talk about Jameson Taillon a little bit, I mean, last 7 games, guys, 5-0 with a 2.32 ERA, 39 strikeouts, a whip of just 1.05. I mean, he has been doing everything right. And you mentioned Jordan Montgomery too, Rain, and those guys are so valuable to this starting rotation if they can be consistent like this. And again, Orioles and Marlins, those have been the last 2 opponents, but the Yankees offense is starting to come around, and that is exciting.
Imagine the wins Jordan Montgomery would have if they scored some runs for him.
Yeah,
the run support has been terrible.
He's like the Jacob deGrom of the Yankees. Now, Grant, I'm not calling Jordan Montgomery Jacob deGrom, so don't flip out. It's just that he gets no run support, even though he pitches fantastic.
This is the Sportszilla Show on ESPN Radio. ESPN Radio Syracuse, by the way, 97.7, 100.1. You're going to get the Hall of Fame game that we were talking about a little bit earlier. I wanted to give out that programming note. When we reference the New York Yankees, it's brought to you by William Mattar. Hurt in a car, call William Mattar at 444-4444. And while we're on the subject, real quick, Glue Guy, Yankees on deck with Matt and myself tonight at 6 o'clock, and that's brought to you by Frohn & Son Funeral Home, Pathfinder Bank, and the Killebrew Saloon, all across Central New York on ESPN Radio. One more?
Last one. Does it matter that Kevin Dineen was named the new head coach of the Utica Comets?
Yeah, what a playing career. 19 years. His coaching resume, also includes Olympics, coaching the women's team, Team USA women's hockey team. He's had a great career. He's a great player. I remember him most from, I think it was his Philadelphia days, but he played for 5 teams. I think he's worked with Columbus. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's a great hire.
It was fantastic.
As the New Jersey Devils become the affiliate of the Utica Comets become the affiliate of the New Jersey Devils, and cannot wait to see him coaching against the Syracuse Crunch to satisfy the demand for the Thruway Throwdown and Galaxy Cup and Utica right here in Central New York. This is getting good. Believe it or not, you blink your eyes, it's going to be October. We'll have a hockey season.
Can't wait. And Syracuse, they've got a great coaching staff themselves, so they shouldn't have any reason to be hanging their heads over this hire. But for Utica, it's very, very exciting. Kevin Dineen, an established name in the hockey world,
brand name,
and he's got such a resume as a player and as a coach. It's just a fantastic hire all the way around, and I'm so excited for this upcoming AHL season.
Oh, the chirps will begin online if they haven't already. Mike McAllister with Syracuse on SI is going to join us next on ESPN Radio.
This is the Sportszilla Show with Rain and Matt and WKTV Sports Director Spencer Davidson on ESPN Radio.
Time to welcome in Mike McAllister, a voice you hear frequently all over the airwaves here on ESPN Radio with Syracuse on SI, of course. Mike, TBT, your thoughts now that we've had a couple of days to let the dust settle. I don't know if you caught Jim on with us earlier. The Heim was on the air in our opening segment, but he wouldn't rank them. But I'll ask you to. Obviously, a gold medal and a national champion, I'm sure, is not quite on the same level. But that sure was a blast for Orange fans, not just in Central New York, but across the country.
Yeah, it really was. It was a lot of fun. I think the timing of it, the fact that it basically started like right at the end of the NBA Finals, so basketball was still right on the mind of fans, and the fact that the NCAA tournament was only a couple of months ago. It's kind of at a perfect time, and there was a lot of hype around this Boeheim's Army team with the additions that they made, and then you still had several prominent former Syracuse players that were playing a large role, and then you still had Devo there. There was a lot of intrigue with it, and it seemed like they They got better as the tournament went along. And when they figured out a way to win the opening game, when they were basically playing from behind almost the entire game, they weren't shooting the ball very well, didn't seem to really be cohesive or had the level of energy you need to win those kind of games. They figured out a way to win that game. And I kind of thought in the back of my mind, usually when a team makes a run in the NCAA tournament, there's always a game where they didn't play particularly well, but figured out a way to win it. When you think back to Syracuse's run, Oklahoma State, they got down by 18. They came back and figured out a way to win that game. They weren't particularly sharp against Manhattan in the opener and won that game. This kind of felt like perhaps it was the same thing, and that's exactly what it proved to be. So it was fun to watch. It was fun to cover. Happy for Devendorf, who's been a great job representing Syracuse in Central New York, and it was cool to see his vision from 7 years ago finally come to fruition.
And the Belbys and Adam Weitzman and his stars aligned this year. Man, were you swearing at that TV? I mean, jumping for joy. Removing the fact that you're a journalist that covers Syracuse athletics, just as a fan, Mike. I don't know if you saw Spencer's video yesterday. I was in my house and I had family members sleeping when it ended, so I couldn't scream as loud as I wanted to. So I was doing one of those phantom screams where I'm yelling but no sounds coming out of my mouth. What was your reaction in the moment to it?
Yeah, I've done that before. I was the only one awake at that point as well. But I was happy for the guys on the team and specifically for Devendorf. I've gotten to know him a little bit over the last several years from covering Syracuse and talking to him and trying to retweet the stuff that he does around the community and a lot of the cool stuff that he does. And he just comes across as a very genuine, caring guy. And so I was just happy for him because I know this meant a lot to him. And then I've always kind of had a little soft spot for Chris McCullough. He was a player that one of my favorites that I got to cover during the recruiting process. A lot of times when you got 5-star players, they can be hard to track down and hard to get interviews with. And McCullough was one that every single time I reached out, he always responded and did an interview with me. And I was always very appreciative of that. And so the fact that his only season at Syracuse got cut short, I always felt bad that didn't work out, and still think that he's got the talent that he should be in the NBA. So it was cool to see him play and play well and play a prominent role. So, I was just, kind of glad for everybody involved, a little bit relieved because there was a lot of pressure on them to do it this year with the guys that they added. And then I thought it was really cool to see Coach Boeheim's reaction to the whole thing as well. You don't see him smile very often, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I felt like he hadn't wiped the smile off his face when we talked to him a little bit earlier. With Syracuse NSI, it's Mike McAllister here, the Sports Illustrated Show on ESPN Radio, of course. All right, well, are you ready for some football? That's the question, and it kind of means two things. Got a little NFL tonight, which we want to get to, but SU's training camp starts tomorrow. We heard from Dino and Kingsley and Chris Elmore a little bit earlier. We learned there are 4 players that are not going to be back with the program. They shook up the roster a little bit. I know you were covering that. What else do we need to know as we get ready for SU football and hopefully more than one win?
Hopefully more than one win from Dino's perspective as well, because if they only get one more, he might not have another year to try to turn that around. But, I thought one of the interesting comments he had today on the quarterback battle was that it was wide open. I think there's kind of been a little bit of a misconception that it's Tommy DeVito's job to lose and that he's clearly far in front. I do think he's got an advantage because of his knowledge of the playbook and experience there, but I think the fact that Dino said it was wide open tells you a couple of things. I think, one, Garrett Schrader is going to have a very real opportunity to win the job and be the guy week 1. I think, number 2, it shows that it really is going to be an intense training camp battle between those two. Number 3, that they're going to have probably the best depth that they've had at the quarterback position since 2018 when they had DeVito backing up Dungy. And, also I think Dino's not really going to play his hand there. I think he's going to kind of use that to his advantage going into week 1, in that those two players are so different in terms of their skill set and what they bring to the table, what their strengths are, that the longer he can try to force Ohio to, in some capacity, prepare for both. I think it does provide a little bit of an advantage for Syracuse going into that game. So we'll see how it goes. I think Dino's going to keep everything as close to the vest for as long as possible. But I found that kind of interesting. The fact that they might add another offensive lineman through the portal before training camp ends, I thought was also interesting. But, he's pointed to the health of the guys that they've got there. Thought that was also interesting. But, largely it's getting things going. It's getting some excitement for the season and fans back in the dome and all of that. So I think everybody's just looking forward to getting that started.
When you're picked to suck, you got to sack up and win some games.
Yeah.
Let's just be point blank and brutally honest about it.
You're telling me, talking with Mike McAllister of Syracuse on SI. And, you mentioned that if they have another poor season, Dino may not have a job. So with all that being said, coming off the 1-win year, how would you assess Dino's demeanor heading into this season and just kind of how he seems to be, as we enter, what's a big year for his career?
It is, but I haven't noticed any tangible change in how he addresses the media, how he talks about the team. There doesn't appear to be, a short fuse or, getting testy with people or something that would suggest that perhaps he's feeling some warmth in his seat or that pressure is getting to him. I think a lot of coaches kind of view their seat as being warm year to year anyway. So it doesn't seem to have really changed much in terms of his approach. I think he's very confident in his staff, his system, and if the roster can stay healthy, I do think that he likes this team and their ability to win enough games to get to be bowl eligible. But if I'm them, every single one of these publications that comes out and picks Syracuse to finish last and not win a game in the ACC and all that, I'm putting that all over the locker room. Nobody believes in you but us. And I'd use that as much as you can to motivate guys. The interesting thing I find, the thing I find funny about these preseason prognostications is it's almost always a replica of what happened the year before with perhaps a slight tweak at the top. If someone loses a quarterback, someone else has theirs coming up. Maybe you flip them in terms of the standings, but largely there's never predictions of the team that went 1-10 last year finishing 8-4 this year. Those type of predictions almost never happen in preseason stuff. So people get very bent out of shape and surprised when the preseason predictions come out and they're a mirror of exactly what ended up happening last year. You think back to when Syracuse won 10 games. They were predicted to finish last that year. The next year they were predicted to win 9 or 10 games again, and they ended up finishing in last. So I don't pay too much attention to them. I think they're a little bit overblown. The one final thing I'll say on that is the prediction that Syracuse is not going to win a single ACC game is laughable. Only because even when they were 1-10 last year, they still won an ACC game. They haven't not won an ACC game since Dino Babers has been here. So they'll figure out a way to win a conference game. I think the biggest key is going to be winning week 1 at Ohio. You got to take care of business against Albany and Rutgers. Perhaps maybe split with Rutgers and Liberty, but at least set yourself up at 3-1 coming out of the non-conference. And then see how things play out in conference play. If they can stay healthy, I think they'll be good enough to make a bowl game.
Mike, we got about 90 seconds left here. How great does it feel to have football finally back? It's the Cowboys and the Steelers in the Hall of Fame game. And second question, Melo going to the Lakers, how awesome is that?
I'll start with the Melo thing. I think it's great for him. It gives him an opportunity to legitimately chase a ring. I think it's the first time in his career he'll be on a team that has realistically had championship aspirations. I think every other team he's been on maybe had aspirations of making a run in the playoffs, but no one really thought they were a championship caliber team. This team is going to have those expectations. I hope that he's able to get that for his career. It's the only thing left off of his resume. So that I thought that was really cool, and he and LeBron being buddies, another layer to it. But I forgot the second part of your question. I apologize.
The Hall of Fame game tonight.
The Hall of Fame game, yes. So football is back. That's fantastic, except it's Dallas. So it's not really football that's back, but it's kind of football that's back. It's great because usually the teams that play in the Hall of Fame game, they have that extra preseason game, don't tend to do as well during the regular season, which is great for my Eagles and the Cowboys.
And the Giants.
Yes, except we have to root against them as well. But
damn.
Listen, I think it's great that football's back. I think it's great that we're going to have football every weekend going forward, basically up until January, February. And I can't wait for the fall for college football, NFL, and everything else.
We're giving you a fist bump through the radio. Mike McAllister, Syracuse NSI. Thanks for the time, as always, my friend. This is ESPN Radio and the Sports Illustrated Show. Coming back with a quick segment called You're Killing Me, Smalls. Then we'll get to the kerfuffle.
You're killing me, Smalls. It's the Sportszilla Show with Rain and Matt with WKTV Sports Director Spencer Davidson on ESPN Radio. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com.
You're killing me, Smalls.
QSportsTalk.com. Not only is there an outstanding conversation going on in the chat about Syracuse from the presser earlier, we gathered they're probably going to run the ball a bit this year. I think that we could kind of see the writing on the wall with that. But I thought maybe we need to get a Twitch poll up there. Can you tell the difference between Larry David, Bernie Sanders, and Coach Jim Boeheim? Make your pick. We've got to do that. Let's get that started in there also. I'm just thinking, hey, man, subscribe. I'm telling you, join us on Twitch. QSportsTalk.com will take you right there. We have some fun there that is not necessarily always part of what we do on the radio with the Sportszilla Show on ESPN Radio.
So what do you want the answers to be? Would it be a yes, no, or a maybe question?
Yeah, that's easy enough, right?
All right.
Or you give options like 2 out of the 3. Like, all right, I mean, I can tell the difference between Bernie Sanders and Jim Boeheim, but I can't tell the difference between Larry David and Jim Boeheim. That's an option, too.
I'm just inspired by the Curb Your Enthusiasm music as we have tweaked the You're Killing Me Smalls rejoin to the airwaves. Kerfuffle's on the way. So is John Schmelk for NBA, New York Giants, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And head coach Jeremy Pope, Boeheim's Army head coach, championship coach Jay Pope will be joining us. Can't wait to talk to him. Of course, Jim Boeheim on earlier. That'll bring me to the James Mitsubishi Sportszilla Show podcast, which is available wherever you get yours, Apple, Google, Spotify, SoundCloud, timelines at ESPN UR and at ESPN Syracuse, and always on demand at QSportsTalk.com, by the way. So is Orange Nation and our man Brent Axe and On the Block. None of those things are killing me, Smalls, but I tell you what is. This is where we've got to just take a quick look again at this Coach Q situation. So you may or may not be aware, I'm sure you are if you're a fan, Vaughn Reed has taken over on an interim basis for this upcoming season. You had to get something in place. It's going to be here quick. Ronnie Enoch is not with the program, Cedric Salas and Kim Keenan Kilpatrick no longer employed at SU. And as a result of that, the residuals and the fallout, as expected, I hate to say this, but as expected, because this program has been decimated with a couple of athletic reports, one coming out in June and one just a couple of days ago. You got Latasha Lattimore and Cheyenne Day Wilson decommitting. I don't think those are the only two. This, you know what? I got to say this. I thought maybe you should wipe the slate clean with anything involved with the Coach Q regime for a fresh start.
Well, that was going to be my point. I'm shocked Vaughn Reed was named the interim coach. I figured they were going to go outside of the program for at least a season before they name an official head coach.
And I don't know necessarily, it's not necessarily anything to do with him personally.
Correct.
It's just the guilt by association factor. There are options out there.
Trickle-down effect.
Which we have discussed right here on Sportszilla and others have discussed. You may have done that amongst yourselves. But it's also, if you look at it from the other side, to be fair, what a tall task for him this year to keep this program afloat right now, because it is not going to be fixed quickly. There is a ton of work, and we don't know how far up the chain of command this is going to go within the university itself. That's what's killing me, Smalls. It's just very sad to see this happen to the SU women's basketball program, because on the court, listen, you can say what you want about what he did behind the scenes, but it was a great program. It was a premier program. It's some of the best talent in the country coming here. That's gone, and it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, this sets the program back years.
I
mean, you're obviously already seeing it with the decommissions, but, you probably won't see the program being able to build back up until after you hire a permanent head coach, and then go a few years after that. Once they can go out, the new staff can go out and start recruiting players. So really, I mean, you're looking at a minimum of 4 years where really you can't even build the program back because you're still dealing with the effects of the commute, the recruits, that's the word I was looking for, the recruits that, Coach Q and his staff had put in place.
And the quicker the law firm can finish their investigation,
Absolutely,
the better it is for the program and the university to keep moving forward.
There's enough people speaking on the record, some off the record, but enough former players and whatnot, and those within the program that have been on the record now. And as this has now been reported, you hear through the grapevine everywhere. I don't know how credible you might deem some of those sources, but a lot of this was known. And this could have been rectified a long time ago. Some of this started back in the Darryl Gross era. So it didn't have to get to this point, and it's a damn shame that it did. We'll stop there. I'm sure we'll be talking about this again in the future. Our kerfuffle is up next with a little bit of sound check mixed in on ESPN Radio and the Sportszilla Show. Hang tight.
Who's got Twitter beef, bulletin board material? We've got another Donnybrook, an athletic brouhaha. Let's go toe-to-toe. It's the Sportszilla Kerfuffle.
A classic conundrum.
It's the Sportszilla Show with Rain and Matt, with WKTV Sports Director Spencer Davidson on ESPN Radio. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com.
How am I leading this Twitch poll? QSportsTalk.com. How am I leading this?
Because I voted for you.
Because it says old bald guy, that's why you're leading it.
Question is, who is your go-to image of an old bald guy? Jim Boeheim, Larry David, Bernie Sanders, me, or other? It looks like Prince Odie voted for himself, but I'm leading this right now. Jim Boeheim, Larry David, and Bernie Sanders are all in like their 70s, approaching 80 years old.
Aren't you?
And I'm winning this. No, man, I'm not.
Yeah, but shouldn't you be like
it's a jab
flattered by that?
It's to be in company so great.
And
sure.
you're the best bald guy?
Okay.
Doesn't matter if they call you old.
But the word old is in there.
Yeah, so what?
What's up with that?
I mean, Jim Boeheim is an older gentleman, and he's a legend and very well respected. So
he's probably in better shape than I am.
Well, also it might be Jordan Capozzi or our guy Josh who came up with the Twitch poll, and you are older than they are, so they use the word old.
Oh, so I get to be called old because of that?
Yes.
All right. I thought it was a payback. You voted your burner account and your burner account and everything else because I gave you the Yosemite Sam from Space Jam because we still want an answer on which one was better, the original or the new one.
And did you watch them yet?
And we haven't gotten them yet. And even the Twitch peeps want to know what's going on with that.
Okay.
Listen, he just will not engage.
I mean, he should be flattered by the fact that we respect his opinion enough to ask him.
The kerfuffle with the glue guy continues between Spencer and myself till we get to the bottom of that question. But we got a couple legitimate ones for you. The first one is Dan Campbell, the head coach, a former Cowboy and head coach of the Lions, who wants a real lion at practice. Biting kneecaps was another quote,
yes.
Right?
Yep.
This guy is, well, there's a reason he's the way he is, and I'm going to explain this to you. He went through his coffee routine, and you may have heard this already, but we've got to share this again. This is just yeah, he drinks a lot of coffee. I thought I did. Puts me to shame.
Well, normally what I do is I'll get two venti. I go to, Starbucks to get two venti of the pike with 2 shots in them. So black eye in both. That's what I come in with. That's how I start the day. So
now I think that's their lighter roast, which is the strongest amount of caffeine. Then a couple of shots of espresso in both of those. This is a highly caffeinated dude. No wonder he's so energetic and intense. I don't know if he sleeps. Yes.
That's 80 ounces of coffee and 4 shots of espresso.
Jeez.
Just start his morning. That doesn't include everything else that he drinks throughout the day.
That's probably why he has to eat kneecaps in order to coach a football team.
And wants, real lions on the field.
And yeah.
But is it just me, or in an audio piece, does he sounds a little bit like Peyton Manning? Don't you think so? His voice?
You're going to have to replay that again.
Okay.
Replay it again very quickly. Just a little excerpt.
No, I got you.
Well, normally what I do is
the tone's there. No, I don't need to hear anymore. The tone is absolutely there.
It sounds just like Peyton. I would have thought that was Peyton if I didn't know who we were talking about.
Have you seen the videos of Peyton circling around lately with him and the kid that pours the Gatorade at the games over like those?
Yes.
This is a good Gatorade. You spike the Gatorade. He's like busting their chops. It's kind of funny.
Red Robin, the Twitch poll says that's equal to 10 Red Bulls. Just in the morning.
Oh,
how does your heart not explode?
This guy is intense, man.
Wow.
I'm telling you right now. Moving on the kerfuffle on the Sportszilla Show on ESPN Radio. Anthony Rizzo, new Yankee, who is putting up some historic numbers, and I'm glad we have him, against Jed Hoyer, the Cubs GM. As you may or may not be aware, the Cubs just went all in on a rebuild and traded everybody. Javier Baez is a Met now. Chris Bryant's on the Giants now. We got Anthony Rizzo. You know what they did. Well, here's a quote from Jed Hoyer, who used to be with the Red Sox, by the way, and then he followed Theo out to the Cubs. Well, he's still there. Jed Hoyer's still there. He said, probably my greatest source of frustration from this era, I put my head on my pillow every night, knowing that we put our best foot forward, these extensions that we offered these players, meaning the guys that I just listed that they traded will hold up exceptionally well against the open market. And he claims none of them were willing to accept them, which is why he ended up trading all of them. Well, first of all, that's telling that none of them wanted to sign an extension to remain there. And you're part of the power structure with the Cubs. He says, I don't know why these guys didn't want to sign. I don't know why guys didn't even want counteroffer. And this happened oftentimes. Well, then they asked, of course, Anthony Rizzo about this. He says, I'm confused on why you would say that. It sounds like a bad breakup. And the person's saying that they're fine when they're not fine. I think it can speak for itself that there is a common denominator that no one signed. He made a point to point that out. And whoever wants to dig into that, they can. I just think that we had some great memories there. He took the classy way out. To come out and say that, though, doesn't make any sense, but it is what it is. I'm not saying this is going to explode from here, but that's all out there now. And you're going to hear from others on this subject. Why bother kicking him in the butt on the way out the door? You made the decision to trade him. You got to live with it.
Yeah, and, I just think that Hoyer comes out in all this looking
terrible.
Just and kind of like an idiot. Like, why would you bring it up that none of the guys wanted to sign? Because again, like
sour grapes.
Yeah, the opinion is going to be that if none of the guys wanted to sign, maybe there's something within the organization that is preventing them from wanting to sign.
Instead of pointing the finger at someone else, you should point it at yourself.
Right. And I do. I think Rizzo, offered a great response. I mean, he was like, it doesn't really make sense, but it is what it is. Like, he didn't get into a confrontation, and he wasn't confrontational about it. But, I mean, you see it with the Syracuse women's basketball program. 11 players leave, and then what happens? You find out that there were a lot of problems within the structure, the coaching structure within the program. So what's going on with the Cubs? Why don't players want to sign? I'm not saying anything like what's happened in the Syracuse women's basketball program is. I'm just using the example of when you see people not wanting to be there, there's probably a reason for that.
You got to ask the question, why?
Utica College men's basketball coach Sean Coffey just texted me and says he thought that was Peyton Manning as well.
He did?
Right? Yes.
It does sound...
Thank you, Coach. Thank you.
It does sound a little bit like Peyton Manning. Maybe it was Peyton Manning pretending to be Dan Campbell
in an SNL sketch.
Did we get?
Do we have confirmation of that it was Dan Campbell?
Was that a cunning ruse in an attempt to trick us all? Because if it was, it worked.
Did Peyton Manning just like dub his voice over Dan Campbell?
There is video. That was Dan Campbell. That's where that audio came from. I think everybody's seen it and heard it by now. Our kerfuffle on Sportszilla Show, ESPN Radio. Appreciate however you reach out to us via text. You can get us on social media at ESPN Sportszilla is where to find the show itself. QSports.com is another great area. There's always another great place. There's always great conversations going on in there that some make it to the airwaves and some, well, they do not. Here's the next one, though. Who's got some beef in the world of sports? The Dodgers and the Astros right now. They were throwing food. They were throwing drinks. Somebody threw a trash can onto the field. They've been playing at Dodger Stadium.
Someone put a Astros trading cards into the toilets.
Oh, man. And then you had Jose Altuve with 4 strikeouts last night. Carlos Correa ended up hitting a home run off of Joe Kelly. There is no love lost. This is as good, as fiery, as passionate, as hateful as the Yankees Red Sox. But the floor is lava. Get out of there. It's hot. I mean, wow, what a scene.
I'll ask you both. Do you feel like the Dodgers fans are doing it better than the Yankee fans?
Right now? Yeah. I mean, there's fights in the stands.
Yep.
Yeah. They're brawling. I mean, Paulie Scabilia from Orange Nation, he's all loving the Dodgers and the Padres and the Giants and the Padres, but there's something about this Astros-Dodgers series right now. It's got as much juice as any rivalry in the game of baseball right now.
Yeah. And, obviously, for obvious reasons, the World Series battles between the two teams. But, whenever the Dodgers are involved in anything or any altercations with L.A., Joe Kelly's going to be right in the middle of that. And you know what? Again, this continues to show how much the MLB dropped the ball with the Astros situation.
Yeah.
Because had there been more punishments, had they been more harshly punished, I don't think teams would have felt the need to take it upon themselves as much. I still think there would have been some animosity, but it's because of the fact that that players and teams feel like, I mean, they just got away clean.
Did you see Joey Votto's unpopular opinion that, hey, it's time to move on from hating on the Astros?
Yeah, but again, I think had they been punished and had there been a full season in between where we are right now, maybe that would be true. But we didn't have a full season. Fans weren't in the ballpark last year. The Astros didn't get punished. I mean, this is what happens.
There's validity to it because it's 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
But there's always also the flip side of that. It directly affected the Yankees, so you understand why that team has issues with the Astros. It directly affected the Dodgers, and of course, those two fan bases will then be engaged on this. If Joey Votto was a member of those two teams, I wonder if his feelings would be different. That's tough to let go when you're sitting there going, you cheated, and that could have cost us championships. Yep. And at the end of the day, I suppose I understand. Listen, the last one, we got to take a break here, but LeBron James, if healthy, with the moves the Lakers have made, and we heard an endorsement from Jim Boeheim earlier today on the Sportszilla show. Well, he's got issue about the energy surrounding the Lakers versus the Fountain of Youth because they're old as far as basketball players are concerned. Don't doubt him. That's all I'm going to say. LBJ is still an elite player and probably the most well-rounded overall, all-around player in the game. And yeah, I'll stand by that statement. We'll take a break on ESPN Radio. John Schmelk back to talk to us a little bit more about the NBA free agency, the draft, the Knicks, and the New York Football Giants, whose games are heard right here.
This is the Sportszilla Show with Rain and Matt and WKTV Sports Director Spencer Davidson on ESPN Radio.
As we welcome in on the Accelerate Sports Complex phone line, John Schmelk, our go-to with Giants.com. ESPN Radio is, of course, the flagship for Giants football. Can't wait to hear those games on the radio. You got to listen once in a while to sports and not just watch it. The good ones, of course, the good broadcasters always paint that visual image. Sometimes you almost feel like you're there. Well, John Schmelk also covers the Knicks, so we're going to go in both directions. I want to start with the brawl, but of course the outcome of that from practice the other day. And then Joe Judge wasn't happy, but all you're seeing is togetherness, which is great. They don't mind being coached up the way Joe Judge is coaching them. They are all on board with what he's doing.
Yeah, everyone in the national media who isn't here every day, I know it's tough for them because they're not here every day, but they try to, I think, portray Judge as kind of a, taskmaster sergeant that's an old school guy that, doesn't do anything modern and his players aren't going to like him and it's not going to work. But to your point, these guys all buy in. Sterling Shepard was asked about the next day. He goes, look, that's the way we do things here, and if you don't like it, you can go join another team. I mean, Sterling Shepard just came out and said that. So, yeah, that's the way it's done here. And I'll use a Joe Judge quote. Yeah, for players that come here, we ask more of you than other teams will, but we think it gives us the best chance to win, and the players are buying into that.
Yeah, I was like, who at first? I think we all were. We were surprised by the Joe Judge hire, but he won me over last year, and his players love him, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing develop this year. What about the injury to the hammy for Kenny Golladay?
No, first of all, you're right about Judge last year. The team started 1-8, and he kept that team together, which is hard to do. So absolutely 100% I'm with you on that. Golladay, Judge did not want to give a timetable on that. There was some reporting by a couple of Giant beat guys today that it's 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, look, it's a hamstring. In the regular season, you have a strained hamstring, you're missing a week or two, right? So at least. So I think you're looking at 2 to 3 weeks to start, and if it needs more than that, it needs more than that. Look, there should be no rush to get this guy back on the field. He missed the first couple weeks of last year with the hamstring, so be cautious here. If he doesn't play in a preseason game, who cares? Would you like to get him some rest with Daniel Jones in a game? Sure. If you can't, so be it. It's much more important for them to be on the field and be healthy when the regular season starts.
Talking with John Schmelk of Giants.com here on the Sportszilla Show, ESPN Radio. Okay, so Daniel Jones was on the bottom of the pile in the brawl the other day when he hasn't been mobbed by his teammates under a pile of a brawl. How do you think he's looked so far here as he gets set for year 3 in the NFL?
Well, we've only had 2 what I would call kind of real training camp practices so far. The first week was kind of a build-up. There were no pads. Then there was just shells, and the Giants were just doing red zone work in that first week. And as you guys know from just watching the NFL, it's very tough to pass in the red zone. You have limited space. You can't throw it over the top. So that's going to give the defense the advantage. And the defense outplayed the offense the first week of practice because of that. And I can tell you, the first 5 practices, Daniel Jones didn't throw one pass that traveled more than 20, 25 yards in the air because everything was in the red zone. So they opened things up a little bit this week, and it got better relatively quickly. The best practice was the first padded practice of the year for the offense. That was, I guess, Tuesday. And I thought the offense was fantastic. I think he threw only like one incomplete pass the entire practice. And he was really, really good. Not quite as sharp yesterday. Today was more of a walkthrough. So once they finally opened things up and let the offense operate in space, it looked a lot better than it did last week.
John, I want you to listen to Mike Greenberg and Greeny a little bit earlier talking about the Giants. He is of the belief, and this is a Jets fan, of course, that the Giants have a chance to be sneaky good this year. I'm going to play it for you, have you react on the other side.
Joe Judge is a good coach, and the team has respect for him, and they have much more talent than you are suggesting. I think Daniel Jones has the talent to be a decent quarterback. Maybe not a great one, but a good enough one. And you put Saquon Barkley behind him and Kenny Golladay out on one side and Sterling Shepard out there and this kid Kadarius Toney out of Florida and the tight end and everything. I think that they have a chance to be good. I think they have good players. And that defense, I give a lot of that to coaching. And I give a lot of that coaching. Look, that's a team that was buried early in the season, and they hung in there. Now, part of it might be that the division never ran away, but even so, I feel pretty good about the Giants. I think the Giants have a chance to be a sneak into the playoffs kind of team. Like, I think Washington is head and shoulders the best team in that division, but there are 7 teams that make the playoffs this year, and I believe that the Giants have a chance to be the 7th.
And there you go. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I'll disagree on one point. I don't think Washington's head and shoulders better than the Giants are. I can see the argument for why you think they're going to win the division, and there's a good argument to be made for that. But I think it's very, very close between Washington, New York, and Dallas, to be quite honest with you. But it was funny. I talked Chris Sims and Phil Sims were at practice yesterday, and Phil Sims spoke to the team after practice. Joe just likes having these former Giants come back and do that. And I had a chance to talk to Chris after practice on the Giants Huddle podcast, which you guys can go check out on the Giants app or podcast platforms. And the thing that Chris said to me, and the first question I asked him, because this was his first kind of live Giants practice with Joe Judge, who we knew from his time up in New England. And he said, look, the first thing I noticed is just looking at this team, this is a team that's going to look good coming off the bus. And the talent deficiency that he thinks kind of has been impacting this team for a few years, which is why they haven't played as well, that's not prevalent anymore. That's dissipated. So he thinks, much like Greeny spoke about, that this team is more talented now, and their talent should allow them to compete for a playoff spot or win the division. So I think that is everything he said, I think, is right on the money. Now, they have to come out and do it. They have to stay healthy. The offensive line has to do better. Daniel Jones has to take that step. Are any of those things, for sure going to happen? No. But there potentially could be in the cards.
Talking to John Schmelk with Giants.com, ESPN Radio in Central New York, of course, the flagship for New York football. Giants Sportzilla show, of course. We want to flip over, though, to the Knicks and kind of get a state of the New York Knicks. So lay it all out for John Schmelk. And Matt, what do you got?
Yeah, John, we asked you before you jumped on the air with us about how you feel like the offseason's going so far. You had Derrick Rose re-signed with the team. Nerlens Noel re-signed with the team. And then you also have Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier being added to the mix. And now this morning, Julius Randle signing that extension for 4 years. How great has this offseason been for the Knicks, in your opinion?
Well, I'll be honest. Monday night, it was not fun going to bed. I was not that pleased because at that point we all thought that the Noel, Rose, and Burke contracts were all fully guaranteed for 3 years. And I did not think that was a smart thing to do because I thought it was important to maintain flexibility. But what happens then? They end up signing Fournier that night. You find out the 4th year on his contract is a team option. The next morning, Ian Begley reported, and Zach Lowe later on, that Noel, Rose, and Burks are really all just 2-year contracts with a team option for a 3rd year, which makes them a lot easier to trade. Then you find out with the $8 million that they have left under the cap, because the front office wisely signed Derrick Rose with his early bird rights to go over the cap. They had money left over. They wait for Kemba Walker to be bought out once, the old Knicks with Steve Mills and Isaiah Thomas would have traded for Kemba Walker with $36 million on his contract for this year. But this front office is smarter. They wait for him to get bought out, and they bring him in at a bargain basement, $8 million a year, and that's being reported as a 2-year contract. So it's a low-risk, high-reward deal. If his knee holds up, that's an absolute steal, and it's a difference-making deal. And then this morning, much to my surprise, the Knicks signed Julius Randle a 4-year contract extension for $117 million. And to get an all-NBA player for under $30 million a year is a bargain. In fact, I believe he is the lowest salary of any all-NBA player from the NBA last year. So good for Randle. He could have made more money if he waited till next year to sign, but he decided to go the conservative route and guarantee his money now. Because you never know what happens if he tears up his knee this year, and then maybe he doesn't get any money. So that's one way to do business, and it shows that Randle wants to be here. And I think overall, guys, what it shows, moves like that and the Knicks taking care of their own guys. Leon Rose, in just 2 off seasons, has nearly completely erased the stench that has been on this Knicks franchise for a decade, where people didn't want to come here, and it was a running joke, and he has sanitized all of that in just 2 off seasons. And now the Knicks sit here, and they're an over-the-cap team now, so they're going to wait for that next superstar to demand a trade, whether it's a Dave Lillard, a Zach LaVine, or Bradley Beal. If they hit free agency, they can do a sign and trade, and wait for that next guy that wants to come to the Knicks, because they are now looked at as a franchise that knows what they're doing. They play in a great market, and it's going to be a preferred destination. So there was no avenue this year to become a title contender once Kawhi Leonard and Chris Paul were going to stay put. I think they pretty much did the best they could. You can quibble with maybe the Rose and Noel contracts, but overall, I think they've had a pretty good first week here.
Yeah, Leon Rose has put the focus on everything that is important, and as you said, sanitized and cleaned out everything else. I think he's done an outstanding job. I'm totally in agreement with John Schmelk with Giants.com. Nice enough to talk to us today on ESPN Radio and the Sportszilla Show. Next time we talk, we got to talk about Quentin Grimes, because I liked that move, but we'll hold on to that. Up next, head coach of Boeheim's Army, Jeremy Pope, will join us to celebrate a TBT win right here on ESPN Radio.
This is the Sportszilla Show with Rain and Matt and WKTV Sports Director Spencer Davidson on ESPN Radio.
With you, QSportsTalk.com. Anything you want us to direct towards, as we said, I think I did it in text initially. The glue guy, Matt Page, when we got him locked on the phone, did the same thing. Spencer Davidson is situated in here. Champ, Coach Jeremy Pope of Boeheim's Army. Just first of all, I just asked you right before we went on the air. I'm going to bring the Twitch conversation on here, but don't be humble for just a brief second and just relish in this. You did something that's been a long time in the making for Boeheim's Army, a celebration and extension of Syracuse basketball, and you did a fantastic job, and you won this damn thing, Jeremy. I mean, outstanding job to you, everybody involved, the players. Jim Boeheim, of course, we talked to earlier today, just sitting there and endorsing what just happened. What an amazing moment. And the Orange Nation is nationwide. This fan base is unbelievable. So let me hear what you got.
Somebody asked me, I think this morning, kind of like how I felt about it. And I think because I'm young, I think it's more validating for me than it is anything. I think I worked pretty hard at my craft. I think I prepared a long time prior to getting this opportunity, and I think that's just what it was. Like, my preparation met an opportunity, and it came to fruition how I hoped it would have. And it's gratifying. I'm grateful for it. It's humbling in the same breath, but at the same time, it's very exciting. I think I don't try to make it too big of a thing outside of 6-1 basketball games. I understand that's really hard, but at the same time, now that it's over, and every time I look at my phone, my notifications